In Tanzania, torrential rain slashed the countryside, resulting in dozens of casualties.
Authorities describe the incident as a likely result of the El Niño season. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. The Philippines lifts a tsunami alert on Mindanao as waves receded from a 7.4 magnitude earthquake. ISIL claims responsibility for bombing a gathering at the Mindanao State University. South Korea launches a spy satellite to compete against North Korea. A French-Iranian knife man stabs a German-Filipino tourist in a terror attack in the Eiffel Tower. And King Charles flies to Britain for emergency talks on racism in Buckingham Palace. A magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck Mindanao late Saturday, causing extensive damage, particularly in Surigao del Sur, the region closest to the epicenter. The impact of the earthquake has forced thousands of residents to seek refuge in evacuation centers as strong aftershocks continue to rattle the affected areas. Surigao del Sur, being the most damaged region, currently accommodates over 108,000 people in 115 evacuation centers. At least 3 have been found dead and 8 injured in the province. A pregnant woman was also killed as a wall collapsed while fleeing their home in Davao del Norte province. Another earthquake measuring magnitude 6.8 struck Mindanao this Monday morning, further complicating the recovery efforts and escalating concerns for the affected communities.
Pump prices of petroleum products will see mixed movement in the following day as major oil exporters are expected to implement supply cuts in various regions of the country. In separate advisories, the local oil companies said the price of gasoline would climb by 30 centavos per liter, while diesel would roll back by an equal 30 centavos per liter, while kerosene would also increase by as much as 20 centavos per liter. Clean Fuel will implement the price adjustments by 12:01 a.m., followed by Petrogas and Shell at 6 a.m. According to the Department of Energy, or DOE, Oil Industry Management Bureau, the increase in gasoline prices was triggered by a storm-related drop in Kazakhstan oil output, a weakening dollar, and the decline in U.S. inventories.
Select customers of the Manila Electric Company, or Meralco, are set to experience power interruptions this week as the company is scheduled to undertake maintenance operations in its service area. Consumers in Pulilan, Bulacan, Ayala, Alabang, Muntinlupa, Batasan Hills in Quezon City, and Tiaong and Dolores in Quezon Province are expected to experience power interruptions from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon on December 5 due to the replacement of poles, line reconductoring, and line reconstruction works around the concerned areas. For December 6 to 7, consumers in the Santa Rosa and Cabuyao areas of Laguna are expected to experience power interruptions between 11 at night and 4 in the morning to give way for the installation and replacement of additional poles and facilities and line reconductoring works. Consumers in Maykawayan, Bulacan are expected to experience service interruptions between 9 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon on December 8 to give way for line reconstruction work along MacArthur Highway, Maykawayan City, Bulacan. And finally, on December 10, residents of Tayabas City in the Quezon Province are also expected to experience power interruptions between 12 in the morning and 5 in the morning to give way for the replacement of poles and line maintenance work in the area. Meralco constructs or operates and maintains electric distribution systems in the cities and municipalities of Bulacan, Cavite, Metro Manila, and Rizal, as well as certain areas in the provinces of Batangas, Laguna, Pampanga, and Quezon.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has granted an extension to the term of Philippine National Police Chief Benjamin Acorta Jr., allowing him to continue in his position until the end of March 2024. The decision to extend Acorta's term was based on his effective leadership of the police force since his appointment in April of the current year. The Presidential Communications Office conveyed the news and highlighted Acorta's success in guiding the police force under his tenure. In response, Acorta expressed gratitude to President Marcos for the extension. The decision to extend Acorta's term comes in the aftermath of a deadly bombing in Marawi City on Sunday. The police chief was originally scheduled to retire on the 3rd of December upon reaching the mandatory retirement age of 56.
The Supreme Court has asked Vice President Sara Duterte, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, and Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman to comment on a petition related to the 125 million peso confidential fund spent by her office last year. In a notice dated November 14, 2023, and released by the court, Duterte, Bersamin, and Pangandaman were required to comment within 10 days from the issuance of the notice hereof. Petitioners led by lawyers Christian Monsod, Katrina Monsod, Barry Gutierrez, and R.P. Santiago said the transfer of funds from the Office of the President to Duterte's office as confidential funds and expenses was unconstitutional. The petitioners also said that the Office of the Vice President should be ordered to return the money to the government's treasury. The Budget Department has issued a statement stating that Secretary Amena Pangandaman has been aware of the matter. Aside from the petition filed by Monsod and his group, another petition had been filed challenging the constitutionality of the allocation, release, and disbursement of confidential funds to government departments and agencies. The second petition also challenged the legality of the 2016 Executive Order No. 2 and Joint Circular 2015-01, which exempts the confidential funds from the people's right of access to information. Petitioners in the second case were led by retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, former Senator Richard Gordon, lawyer Howard Calleja, and several members of the University of the Philippines Law Class of 1975.
The Philippines has signed an agreement with the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, on bolstering their economic alliance on digital infrastructure development, a move that will include the development of new high-capacity data centers. The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, on Friday said Trade Secretary Alfredo E. Pascual and UAE Minister of Investment Minister Mohammed Hassan Al Suwaidi signed a memorandum of understanding last November 30. Pascual said in a statement that, and I quote, "This MOU serves as a framework for a stronger alliance of both countries in strengthening bilateral ties, particularly in the digital infrastructure sector." Pascual said the data center projects to be developed under the MOU were expected to have a total capacity of up to 500 megawatts. He added that another key aspect of the agreement is focused on building relationships among public and private sector organizations in the UAE and in the Philippines. The agreement will also facilitate knowledge sharing and provide incentives for relevant initiatives.
The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, reported monitoring a significant increase in the number of Chinese maritime militia vessels, with over 135 ships scattered around the Whitsun Reef as of the 2nd of December. This follows the initial observation of 111 Chinese vessels on the 13th of November in the low tide elevation of the Spratly Archipelago, situated west of Palawan. In response to China's continued presence in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea directed the Coast Guard to patrol the area and document the illegal incursion. Despite radio challenges from the PCG, the number of Chinese vessels has grown to 135. This latest intrusion by Beijing into Philippine waters contributes to the escalating tensions between the two nations. China has been increasing its aggression against Philippine vessels since 2021.
ISIL militants have detonated a bomb inside the Mindanao State University Gymnasium in Lanao del Sur, resulting in at least 4 fatalities and 50 injuries. Amidst the chaos, dozens of students and teachers hurriedly evacuated the gym, and the injured were promptly transported to hospitals for urgent medical attention. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. condemned the act as senseless and heinous, laying blame on the foreign terrorist. In response to the incident, police and military forces ramped up security measures in the southern regions of the country and around the capital, Manila. A senior police official reported the recovery of fragments from a 60-millimeter mortar at the blast site, noting that such explosives, crafted from mortar rounds, have been employed in previous acts by the ISIL militants in Mindanao. Coming up, South Korea launches its first spy satellite. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin warns Russia of a possible scenario of defeat. And Venezuela rejects the ICJ's ruling over a territorial dispute. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Kulang na sa tamis.
Ang Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is, pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
Check yun.
Check.
Check na check.
Double check.
Check na check tayo dyan.
This
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. South Korea has successfully launched its first spy satellite using a rocket operated by SpaceX, the company led by Elon Musk. This move is part of South Korea's efforts in a space race against its neighbor, North Korea. The launch occurred less than 2 weeks after North Korea announced its own successful launch of a reconnaissance satellite. South Korea's satellite, launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, entered orbit a few minutes after liftoff and established communication with ground control shortly thereafter. The satellite is expected to enhance South Korea's capability to monitor North Korea, a nuclear-armed nation. Previously, South Korea heavily relied on the surveillance capabilities of its ally, the United States. With plans to launch 4 more spy satellites by the end of 2025, South Korea aims to further strengthen its ability to monitor developments in the Korean Peninsula.
Prominent activist Agnes Cho, a key figure in Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement, has revealed that she left Hong Kong for Canada due to the mental health toll brought on by pressure from authorities. Agnes Cho, who served 7 months in jail over a 2019 protest, had her passport seized by police. To regain it, she agreed to participate in a mainland China propaganda tour accompanied by national security officers and signed a letter of repentance. Despite regaining her passport, ongoing pressures from authorities took a toll on Cho's mental health, leading to a diagnosis of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. She recently decided to enroll in a master's program in Toronto after being accepted. Due to a report to Hong Kong security police this month, Cho chose not to return, citing concerns for her personal safety and well-being. She expressed the likelihood that she may not return to Hong Kong for the rest of her life, highlighting the challenges faced by activists as Beijing cracks down on dissent.
Russian forces continue to wage their winter offensive in Lugansk People's Republic. To tell us more about the situation, here is RT correspondent Murad Gazdiev.
It is now early morning. We've spent the night at this control point. A restless night. There's a lot of work. So artillery relays coordinates, instructions, commands. And it's been a very loud morning. Outside, that is. There's a drone that hovered over us, and the problem is the brilliant weather. After several days of fog and rain, today both sides can let loose. Outside, American-supplied cluster munitions whistle overhead. Underfoot, cluster bomblets litter the forest floor. This is one of the guns that's been unleashing hell on Ukrainians this morning. Dozens and dozens of shells launched just again this morning. And they're still at it. All of these men are troops mobilized last September. They're now veterans, seasoned, tough, but yearning for a gentle touch far from here.
Do you enjoy your work?
It's not really a joy, it's just a duty. I'm serving my country. I'd like this all to be over quicker, so I can go back home to my wife and daughter.
How old is she?
My daughter will be a year old soon.
So she was born and you left for the war?
No, my wife was still pregnant when I was mobilized. I saw her for only 12 days when I was on leave. Now she's already walking.
Duty is always a heavy burden. It sometimes hurts, but they soldier on, determined to stand tall and proud when they finally come back home. Murad Gazdiev, RT, from Lugansk region.
To address the consequences of severe floods, Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent free wheat to Somalia. The Somali government thanked President Putin for the much-needed relief to flood-affected communities. RT correspondent Nolo Vuyukunge reports.
As promised by President Vladimir Putin, Somalia and Burkina Faso are the first two African countries to benefit from the donations. The first ships carrying 25,000 tons each bound for Somalia and Burkina Faso have already touched down on the African continent. And since the start of this week, we've been awaiting more arrivals because it was said to be at the end of November, beginning of December. Now, the Horn of Africa is one of those regions most vulnerable to climate change. So this is a great move, a move that is seen as one that could help alleviate the situation for many of these African countries, because for the first time this year, Somalia was pushed to the top of the International Rescue Committee's emergency watch list as a devastating drought coupled with the effects of 3 decades of conflict have created a catastrophic food crisis on that end of the continent. And months before President Putin made this decision, Somalia found itself in the midst of its 5th consecutive failed rainy season, and by mid-2023, this year, over 8 million people, which is nearly half of the population, were living through crisis levels of food insecurity as the country was facing an impending famine. And while discussions were taking place about the Black Sea grain deal, grain forms a very important part and a component of Africa, and expressing Somalia's gratitude, as we have heard there, the Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, alongside the Minister of Interior, was acknowledging Russian government and President Vladimir Putin for their support, saying that this donation is the largest they've recently received, showcases that Russian government its deep understanding of the crisis Somalia is facing, because as we all know, not having enough grain brings a threat of worse hunger and political instability in places like Somalia.
Former Foreign Minister of Germany Joschka Fischer says that the European Union needs to get its own nuclear weapons to better deter Russia. Fischer asserts that Europe must not let Russia prevail in Ukraine, insisting the current conflict between Moscow and Kyiv is crucially important for the future of Europe. He believes that the nuclear arsenals of France and Britain are no longer enough to ensure European security. Aside from nuclear deterrence, Fischer points out that Europe should invest in beefing up its air defenses. Last month, Czech President Petr Pavel said that NATO considers Russia to be the biggest threat. President Vladimir Putin, in turn, repeatedly stressed that Moscow sees NATO's eastward expansion as encroaching on Russia's security.
United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin believes Israel risks strategic defeat if it fails to protect civilian lives in Gaza. In his speech during the annual Reagan National Defense Forum in California, Austin said the center of gravity in the war between Israel with Hamas is the human population. He insisted that if civilian lives were driven into the arms of the enemy, then Israel would replace a tactical victory with strategic defeat. Austin added that he repeatedly appealed to Israeli leaders to protect Palestinian civilians in Gaza, as it is both a moral responsibility and a strategic imperative. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told reporters that the Biden administration is working hour by hour to get Israel and Hamas back to peace negotiations.
The U.S. House of Representatives has voted to expel Congressman George Santos following a damning ethics report and numerous criminal charges. Santos, a New York Republican, becomes the sixth lawmaker in history to be removed from the lower chamber of Congress and the first since 2002. His tenure was marred by multiple lies about his past and allegations of fraud, which surfaced after his election. This expulsion marks the third attempt to remove Santos, with two previous votes failing. The expulsion resolution received bipartisan support, with 311 votes in favor and 114 against. Santos swiftly exited the Capitol before the vote's conclusion, evading reporters and entering a waiting SUV as the outcome became apparent. After the vote, Santos announced plans to file ethics complaints against several of his House colleagues, alleging campaign finance violations and questionable stock trading.
Venezuelan voters rejected the International Court of Justice, or ICJ's jurisdiction over Caracas' territorial dispute with Guyana. ICJ barred Caracas from taking any action which would change the status quo in Essequibo. But Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro went ahead with a 5-question consultative referendum. In Sunday's referendum, the electorate supported the creation of a new state in the potential oil-rich Essequibo region. Electoral Authority President Elvis Amoroso said all questions passed with more than 95% approval. He added that at least 10.5 million votes were cast for yes, but did not confirm the number of voters. Maduro lauded the total success of the vote, saying that Venezuelan people have spoken loudly and clearly to annex Essequibo. Venezuela reactivated its claim over Essequibo after the discovery of offshore oil and gas. Guyana's President Irfan Ali quickly expressed concerns over Maduro's disregard for the ICJ order.
Because if Maduro takes a path that ignores the international order, that ignores the International Court of Justice, that ignores international principles of justice and dignity and honor,
The Estado Mayor Central, or EMC, says that peace negotiations with the Colombian government are not in crisis. New head of the AEMC Negotiating Commission, Leopoldo Duran, clarifies that peace talks were suspended a month ago, saying that this process is normal in any dialogue process. But Duran maintains they will not demobilize and hand over weapons until the conflict is resolved within the Colombian government.
No, el proceso no está en crisis. El proceso ha tenido unas crisis, el proceso ha tenido unos altibajos, nosotros nos retiramos a consulta, hicimos una pausa en la mesa que es muy normal en cualquier proceso de diálogo.
The metro rail system in the Ecuadorian capital of Quito is now fully operational. After a decade of work and delays, the line is now complete. Anne Marie Gonzalez tells us more.
Quito trains have been running on a limited basis for several months. Beginning this morning, the complete 22-kilometer line opened with 18 trains making up the system. There are 15 stations along the route. It extends from Quito city center to the northern part of the city. It takes the trains 34 minutes to travel the route, compared with about 90 minutes above ground during peak times. It is the first underground system in Ecuador. Municipal authorities tout it as the most modern system in Latin America. Construction began 10 years ago, and the $2 billion project faced several delays, many of them political. The trains will run 17 hours a day beginning at 5 a.m. Anne Marie Gonzalez from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Mexico has opened a new airport in the Caribbean resort town of Tulum on the Yucatan Peninsula. The Felipe Carrillo Puerto International Airport will ease congestion in the region. Anna Cui has the details.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador presided over the airport's official opening. The airport has been designed to handle up to 5.5 million passengers a year, and it will ease congestion at the airport at Cancun. Cancun is the main resort of the Mexican Caribbean and the port of arrival for thousands of international tourists. Commercial flights began landing in Tulum Friday afternoon. The outlook for the tourism industry is bright. The Mexican Caribbean is expected to have a record number of flights this winter. So far, about 36,000 flights are available between now and next March. That number is expected to go higher with the opening of the new airport. Anna Cui from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Alaska Air announced it will acquire rival Hawaiian Airlines for $1.9 billion. The buyout includes $900 million of Hawaiian Airlines debt. Alaska Airlines CEO Ben Minicucci said the acquisition was the culmination of several months of negotiations. Minicucci also said the merger will give customers in both states expanded domestic and international choices.
Coming up, a stabbing in the Eiffel Tower causes ripples in the Parisian capital. Climate protesters caused quite a stir at COP28 over the weekend. And Prince Harry and Meghan caused the monarchy to be on damage control. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Viral at exclusive. Mga reklamo at problema na napapanood at napost sa social media. Ngayon, aaksyonan na rin ng Responde. Kaya kung meron po kayong nais ay isumbong, mag-text sa 0915-415-1035 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang problema na hindi mabibigyan po ng solusyon. Basta't may agad na responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Dito lamang sa Net25.
Ang Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos every Sunday, 9 p.m.
A Filipino-German tourist has been killed in a knife attack near the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
Bien, ce soir à Paris, un homme s'en est pris d'abord aux alentours d'un petit peu plus de 21h entre le quai de Grenelle et Bir Hakeim, un couple de touristes étrangers. Un touriste allemand né aux Philippines est décédé par des coups de couteau. Il s'en est pas pris à la femme de ce couple et manifestement à l'intervention d'un chauffeur de taxi qui a vu la scène, il a quitté ce lieu, il a ensuite traversé le pont, là les policiers sont arrivés.
The suspect is a 26-year-old man, or French man, who was arrested after the police intervened with tasers. Authorities say that the French man was arrested after the incident had previously pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. The suspect first attacked a couple near the Eiffel Tower, fatally stabbing a German-Filipino tourist. He then assaulted a French man and British woman with a hammer before being stopped by police.
Il a simplement dit aux policiers qui venaient de l'interpeller qu'il ne pouvait plus supporter, manifestement, là aussi je redis ce que ont dit les policiers sur place, que les musulmans meurent, tant en Afghanistan qu'en Palestine. C'est ce qu'il a déclaré aux policiers quelques instants après son interpellation.
With Paris set to be the host country for the Olympics in July next year, France has been put on high alert in recent weeks, raising its security level against the rising wave of religious extremism and anti-Semitism in the European region due to the Israel-Hamas war. According to the public prosecutor for anti-terrorism, Jean-Francois Ricard, the suspect had been convicted in 2018 of intent to commit a terror attack and was known to have wanted to travel to Iraq or Syria a few years earlier. He was released from prison in 2020 and had a record of psychiatric problems. The suspect had told police he could no longer stand seeing Muslims die in Gaza. The attack has also sparked multiple protests in the area against racism and anti-Semitism.
Les premières investigations ont permis de mettre en évidence que l'auteur des faits avait enregistré une vidéo avant de passer à l'acte. Dans ce film, s'exprimant en langue arabe, il se présentait comme étant Abu Talha al-Khorassani, ce qui constitue une référence à l'organisation terroriste État islamique agissant actuellement à partir de l'Afghanistan. Lors de cette vidéo, il prêtait allégeance à l'État islamique. Il apportait son soutien aux djihadistes agissant dans différentes zones, notamment en Afrique, en Irak, en Syrie, au Sinaï, au Yémen, au Khorasan ou encore au Pakistan. Cette vidéo était notamment mise en ligne sur son compte X, ex-Twitter, dont un premier examen faisait aussi apparaître de nombreuses publications sur le Hamas, Gaza ou plus généralement la Palestine.
A landslide in the African nation of Tanzania has claimed at least 47 lives and left another 85 people injured. Officials warn the death toll could rise. Angel Memberi tells us more.
Flooding in the northern region of the country is blamed for the tragedy. Rescue efforts are being hampered because many roads in the area are blocked by mud, water, downed trees, and stones. Homes have been flooded and vehicles are stuck in thick mud. Following an unprecedented drought, East Africa has been hit by weeks of torrential rain and flooding linked to the El Niño weather system. More than 1 million people in Somalia have been displaced by the flooding and hundreds have been left dead. Angel Memberi for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A volcano in western Indonesia has blown its top, sending ash 3,000 meters into the air. The eruption has forced the evacuation of dozens of hikers in the area. Percy Parlada reports.
Officials have placed Mount Merapi on the third highest level of alert on Indonesia's four-step system. The 2,900-meter volcano is located on the island of Sumatra. There are no immediate reports of casualties or damage, but there had been reports of several dozen hikers on the mountain not accounted for. A 19-year-old woman coming down the mountain posted a video of herself where she is covered in ash. Rescue teams have been deployed to bring the mountaineers down to safety. It's unclear how many hikers are still missing. Communities around the Merapi volcano and tourists have been stopped from hiking within a 3-kilometer radius from its crater. Local disaster officials are telling people to stay indoors and wear a mask to protect themselves from the ash. Indonesia has nearly 130 active volcanoes. Percival Parlare for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A couple of climate protests on the weekend in Brussels, Belgium. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets to demand urgent action against climate change. And on the sidelines of the COP28 climate talks, some stark imagery. Thomas I. Likeness has that story.
How much? 1.5 to stay alive. How much? 1.5 to stay alive.
Organizers claim 25,000 people flooded Brussels streets. Police estimate the number at 20,000. They braved low temperatures, waving placards with slogans like "No to climate change, yes to system change," and "We want a livable and healthy planet." A group called Climate Coalition organized the event, which brought together some 90 civil society organizations. Many of the demonstrators expressed frustration with politicians, saying they can no longer rely on them for solutions.
This is not looking good, everybody.
Is he breathing?
Well, there's life, that's for sure. There's hope.
Meanwhile, in Dubai, activists symbolically performed CPR on planet Earth during a demonstration on the sidelines of the COP28 climate summit.
What do we need?
We need more renewables. Can you inject some renewables?
Canadian doctor Dr. Joseph Vipon says the visual imagery reinforces the severity of the situation.
I think it's very easy for us to distance ourselves of what's going on, and sometimes the visual imagery is important to reinforce why this is important.
Vipon and his fellow demonstrators are calling for an end to fossil fuels in order to save lives.
Faster! There's no time to waste.
Thomas I. Likeness from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
2 non-governmental organizations destroyed nearly 2 tons of ivory in Agila, France on Tuesday. They crushed and incinerated elephant tusks and items made from them. JC Yumo reports.
The International Fund for Animal Welfare and France's Office for Biodiversity organized the event. The goal? To stem the trade in ivory and raise awareness of the trafficking responsible for the deaths of thousands of elephants every year. The items destroyed included jewelry, statuettes, and a mahjong game. The majority of the ivory had been donated by about 980 private individuals. The rest came from police seizures. All of the destroyed items were the equivalent of 180 elephant tusks. The 2 organizations says they want to show that ivory only belongs to elephants. The last destruction operation occurred in 2018. At that time, they destroyed 1 ton of ivory. JC Yumo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Meanwhile, more than 100 Rohingya refugees arrived in Indonesia on the weekend. The latest arrivals come after more than 1,000 Rohingya landed in the country's westernmost province of Aceh last month. Kimi Oria reports.
Monitors say more boats are on the way despite locals turning back the often dangerously overloaded vessels. Many communities have stepped up patrols along the coast to discourage refugees from landing. The United Nations Refugee Agency has called for countries to rescue hundreds of Rohingya trapped on board 2 rickety vessels in the Andaman Sea. Those 2 boats are carrying about 400 passengers. Paul Brockman, with Doctors Without Borders, says the influx of refugees is a burden on the usual destinations of Indonesia and Malaysia.
And they shouldn't have to shoulder this burden alone. Governments around the world do need to step up.
Thousands of the mostly Muslim Rohingya, heavily persecuted in Buddhist-majority Myanmar, risk their lives each year in long, expensive sea journeys. They make the journey in boats, often in poor condition, trying to reach Malaysia or Indonesia. Kimi Oria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
People in the UK and parts of Europe spent the weekend digging out of the winter's first major snowstorm of the season. Up to 40 centimeters of snow fell on the UK, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and the Czech Republic. Mark Castillo has more.
This is what people in southern Germany woke up to on the weekend after an overnight snowfall dumped about 40 centimeters of the white stuff. The snow disrupted travel plans for many. Germany closed the airport at Munich on Saturday. Other airports in the region also reported flight delays and cancellations. The storm affected 760 flights. The snow also paralyzed rail traffic in the Bavarian capital. Munich's train station closed down Saturday, and long-distance trains stayed parked. Rail traffic in the country's south remained stalled on Sunday. Traffic ground to a halt on major highways and other roads in the Czech Republic. Some roads remained closed for hours. Public transportation also experienced disruptions. The storm knocked out power to about 15,000 Czech households. Mark Castillo from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle may lose their titles as Duke and Duchess of Sussex under a law proposed by a Conservative MP. Member of the Parliament for the Isle of Wight, Bob Seeley, said he will present this Titles Deprivation 1917 Act Amendment Bill to the government. He said his bill would allow a vote in Parliament to advise the Ancient Advisory Privy Council to strip a member of the royal family of their titles. The lawmaker explained if someone does not want to be royal, then that decision should be respected. He added that former royals should not keep their titles and privileges if they trash an institution and place or that plays an important part in their nation's life.
King Charles has flown home to Britain for emergency talks with Prince William. Royal sources claim heads of the monarchy and aides are creating a plan to counter the royal racism Roe mentioned in Omid Scobie's Endgame. A review copy released in the Netherlands appeared to name King Charles and Princess Kate as the two royals who allegedly commented on the skin tone of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's son Archie before he was born. Reports say palace sources want all options to remain on the table, including filing legal action against the author. But the author has denied naming UK royals in the book, saying there was a translation error.
More than 20 countries have called for the tripling of world and nuclear energy capacity at UN climate talks in Dubai. They are promoting it as part of efforts to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Julian Bukayan reports.
A declaration endorsed by nations ranging from the United States to Ghana to Japan and several other European countries says nuclear energy plays a key role in reaching the goal of carbon neutrality. The use of nuclear energy as a cleaner alternative to fossil fuels is controversial as environmental groups are concerned about safety and the disposal of nuclear waste. French President Emmanuel Macron says now is the time to rely more heavily on nuclear power.
Pourquoi le bon mix, c'est la trilogie sur laquelle d'ailleurs nous avons bâti notre stratégie, c'est l'efficacité énergétique qui permet de réduire votre consommation, c'est plus de renouvelables, et c'est plus de nucléaire. Et c'est pourquoi nous avons, lors de cette COP, pris des engagements clairs de doubler justement nos investissements en efficacité énergétique, de tripler nos capacités renouvelables à 2030 et de les tripler en nucléaire à 2050.
U.S. climate envoy John Kerry says the reality of facts and evidence tells us that you can't get to net zero in 2050 without some nuclear power. But Jeffrey Dower of the environmental group 350.org isn't impressed. He says they don't have time to waste on dangerous distractions like nuclear energy. Julian Bukayan from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Meta has deleted nearly 4,800 fake and misleading accounts based in China. The tech giant said the users pretended to be Americans and attempted to promote divisive content about U.S.-China relations. The company said the fake accounts spread polarizing content about United States politics ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Coming right up, the United Kingdom bids farewell to former Chancellor Alistair Darling. UAAP men's basketball MVP Kevin Kiambao comes off the bench to put LaSalle on the board. And Net25's Night Bazaar welcomes our furry friends. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Time again with New Naitang this December. New Naitang teaches her mom how to skate. She takes care of her friend's pet cat. You can count on it. Learns how to value and save money. And does her best to memorize a difficult poem.
Then I must do it well.
Sunny Girl number 23. Weekends at 9 a.m. here on Net25.
UK's former Finance Minister Alistair Darling, key figure in the 2008 financial crisis, has died. From Europe, Arian Celestino has the details.
Alistair Darling, the UK finance minister when the 2008 financial crisis hit, has died at the age of 70, following a short spell in hospital, his family said on Thursday. A statement issued on behalf of his family said that the death of Alistair Darling, a former Chancellor of the Exchequer and loving serving member of the Labour cabinet, was announced in Edinburgh today. Darling died after a short spell in Western General Hospital under the wonderful care of the cancer team, it added. The Labour politician served as finance minister between 2007 and 2010 under the leadership of Gordon Brown, steering the country through the financial crisis and resulting recession. Paying tribute to Darling, Brown wrote on X, formerly Twitter, saying that he, like many, relied on his wisdom, calmness in a crisis, and his humor. He also added that he sends his deepest condolences to his loving wife Maggie and their children Callum and Anna, adding that Darling will be missed by all who knew him. Current Labour leader Keir Starmer said that he was deeply saddened by the news. Starmer said that Alistair lived a life devoted to public service and that he will be remembered as the Chancellor whose calm expertise and honesty helped to guide Britain through the tumult of the global financial crisis. Darling entered parliament in 1987 and saw his political career flourish after Labour swept to power in 1997 under the leadership of Tony Blair. He was also one of the directors of the successful campaign for a no vote in 2014 referendum on Scottish independence and campaigned for the UK to remain in the European Union in 2016. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Arian Celestino for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In other news, New Jersey police found themselves in a wild pursuit, captured on camera after a deer crashed into Cedar Grove Elementary School. The Toms River Police Department received a call around 10 p.m. from a man walking his dog, reporting the unexpected break-in. Officers swiftly located the deer in a school stairwell, but the situation took a comical turn as the nimble creature eluded capture, darting down hallways and even barging into a classroom. Police body camera footage revealed the escapade, showcasing the deer, affectionately named Rudolph by the officers, leaping onto a bookshelf, causing chaos. After some struggle, the officers employed a dog snare to guide Rudolph toward a rear exit, allowing the deer to make a hasty exit from the school. Rudolph appeared relatively unharmed as it sprinted northward away from the school premises once back in the open.
Lekuok Tuan has dedicated nearly 3 decades to the preservation of the Phuoc Ridgeback and now runs a conservation center with over 400 dogs in Vietnam. Upon discovering the unique characteristics of the Phuoc Ridgeback, Tuan decided to safeguard this remarkable species. In 1999, he purchased 2,000 square meters of land on the island, establishing a farm dedicated to the breed. With a passion for conservation, he incentivized locals to guide him to areas with high-quality dog breeds and persuaded others to sell him pregnant dogs and puppies at a premium. Despite facing setbacks, including a devastating disease that swept through his farm, leading to bankruptcy and imminent auction of his house, Tuan persisted. Collaborating with scientists, he conducted research to conserve the unique genes of Phuoc Ridgebacks on the island. Today, Tuan's commitment has transformed the farm into a thriving 6,000 square meter conservation center and the largest of its kind in Vietnam.
The LaSalle Green Archers started the game firing on all cylinders after absorbing one of the worst losses in UAAP Finals history. LaSalle dragged the UP Fighting Maroons to a winner-take-all clash after tying the season 86 men's basketball finals with a resounding 82-60 victory. Francis Escandor and Joshua David hit the lights out from deep for the Archers, who bounced back with aplomb after being mauled by 30 points in Game 1 to knot the best-of-3 series at 1-1. The Green Archers sank 12 of their 38 three-pointers this time. On the day he officially got crowned the season MVP, Kevin Kimbao came off the bench delivering on both ends and posted 9 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks to help the Archers stay alive, showing us that basketball isn't a game of egos at the end of the day. LaSalle and UP will fight for the crown in a winner-take-all Game 3 on Wednesday, December 6.
70s rock band Kiss bids farewell to live touring and becomes first U.S. band to go virtual and become digital avatars. On Saturday night, legendary rock band Kiss closed out the final performance of their farewell tour called The End of the Road at New York City's Madison Square Garden with a historic virtual performance. During their final performance, Kiss revealed digital avatars of Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Tommy Thayer, and Eric Singer. The avatars were Created by George Lucas's special effects company in partnership with Pop House Entertainment Group, launching Kiss into a performance of God Gave Rock and Roll to You and signaling a new chapter of embracing a kind of digital immortality. Per Sundin, CEO of Pop House Entertainment, said in a statement that this new technology would allow the rock band to continue their legacy for eternity. He said also this cutting-edge technology would allow Kiss to have a concert in 3 cities in the same night across 3 different continents. To create their digital avatars, Kiss performed in motion capture suits.
Oxford University Press, the publisher of the Oxford English Dictionary, named the Gen Z slang Riz the word of the year for 2023. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
Derived from charisma, Riz was chosen by Oxford University Press, the world's second oldest academic press and the publisher of the Oxford English Dictionary, as word of the year for 2023. Riz is chiefly defined as style, charm, or attractiveness. It's often associated with younger generations and is widely used online. Although first recorded in 2022, according to Oxford, the slang term only went viral this year after Hollywood actor Tom Holland was quoted in an interview, "I have no riz whatsoever, I have limited riz." This prompted a slew of memes as overall usage of Riz spiked by a factor of about 15 over the previous year, according to Oxford's data. Casper Grathwohl, the president of Oxford Languages, the dictionary division, said that the word of the year reflects the way social media has rapidly increased the pace of change in language, and it is, in his words, fun to say. Oxford's Word of the Year is based on usage evidence drawn from its continually updated collection of more than 22 billion words gathered from news sources across the English-speaking world. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
23 dogs and cats showcased their unique gimmicks in the Pet Parade on the Net25 Night Bazaar grounds. Pet owners proudly presented their fur babies in many different themes at the parade and competed with each other for the Pet Parade. 7 winners were announced in the competition, including Bubbles, a Chihuahua, Dimple, a Persian cat, Ichika, a Yorkie, Callie, a toy poodle, Princess, a Pomeranian, Zeus, a Maltese, and Tiny, an Aspen. The event also featured Starcada Night, Acoustic Night, Net25 Entertainment Night, and an open mic. Meanwhile, for those who haven't visited yet, head over to the Net25 grounds on Central Avenue, Quezon City. The Net25 Night Bazaar will run until the 8th of December 2023. Families and friends are sure to enjoy the Net25 Night Bazaar with plenty of delicious food available. Other items and more are also on offer from over 60 small, medium, and micro businesses supported by the Net25 management.
Glad to have you back, Gianna.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
And we have to drop by the Night Bazaar.
Yes, we do. We do. And bring your pet. What's his name? Beanie. Bean. That's right. To start the week, here's a quote from American journalist and author George Lorimer. You've got to get up every morning with the determination of you're going to go to bed with satisfaction.
I actually have that quote posted on my wall for my workouts, but I think it applies to everything we do when it comes to work, our relationships. We have to have that determination.
And I bet it's going to preoccupy your mind at night if within the day, that given day, you are not able to accomplish what you have set your heart and mind to accomplish for the day.
It could be little goals too.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.